Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Welcome. Flying in again to join Mr. Ryan Wood today for our live stream. I kind of want to make sure our mic is all good as well. But yes, welcome. It is day 6 of training camp. Can you believe it? We're flying through it.
It's flying through. That's what happens when you have practice every day. You know, they've had it practice every day except for one, and it's going to be 8 of the first 9. I mean, Matt LaFleur is really getting a lot of work done. And today was the longest practice of camp, 2 hours 19 minutes. Only the third, I think, that went over 2 hours. The reason being that they finally, of course, put in the two-minute drills at the end of practice. Pretty good day for the offense in those competitive drills.
Yes, lots to discuss. Before we start, actually, Ryan, I'm going to leave you solo for 5 seconds. I'm going to just make sure our audio is... You know what? You were too low. Here we go. Should be back to normal now. Great. The Ryan Wood show's over. I'm coming back. We're going to take some of your questions here today at training camp, but lots to talk about. Darnell Savage Jr. returned after his hiatus, his tooth, just one wisdom tooth. You got confirmation about that?
Yes, I kept saying teeth, and it's actually tooth. So, grammar's important.
Good, great, 1 tooth. Okay, so funny, everybody is giving me some grief over on Twitter about my paleness, which I know, I get it.
Well, you were just talking about how much of a suntan you've gotten since I was like, okay.
But Katie's saying that I'm looking pretty tan, so Katie, thank you. I actually
Katie's
got a
suck-up.
lot of color today. No, she's not. She's great. She's amazing.
Sorry, Katie.
I got a lot of color today. I got like a little burnt, so I will be aloeing up once I get home. I take care of my skin. Everyone wears sunscreen.
It's hot out there, though. Because here's the thing. We stand on a rubber track, and it's right next to the Don Hudson facility, which I was talking with Chris Roth at WBAY. It's basically like in the 70s when they held up those silver, like, metal panels, convection.
Yeah, big time.
We're basically in a convection oven during practice. It's quite warm.
Yes, it's literally the worst. Literally terrible.
I warned you, though.
I'm schwitzing a lot out there. So let's get down to some of these questions. One of the things I really want to talk about that happened today, Joe is asking about what happened with Josh Jones. We'll have lots of details over on Packers News. I believe Pete is writing a bit about that today.
He'll be in the Camp Insider.
He'll have some more info on that, but we'll talk about it here as well. What did you see from that play, and why was Matt LaFleur so upset?
It basically looked like Josh Jones tried to tackle Trey Carson, missed the tackle, and then almost from the ground was pulling and yanking on Trey Carson's jersey to bring him to the ground well after the whistle, which is something you just don't do. You don't do that. You're going against your own team. Matt LaFleur, he said it after practice, but he said it before this practice. He doesn't want guys tackling. He calls them thud periods, so you can give them a pop. I mean, it's football. It's not patty cake. You can give them a shove, a shiver, but you don't take them to the ground. You don't tackle because that's asking for injury. That's what happens in football when you tackle. That's why you see injuries in the game. It's the tackling. So the other thing that I thought was interesting is he said it was a zero tolerance policy against fighting, which we see fights out here every year. This was the first fight of camp. It was really more of a skirmish than a fight. Nothing really escalated, but it's not uncommon to see. Just a year ago, actually, Josh Jones, really for the same reason, got into it with Jimmy Graham in his first camp because he was playing after the whistle. So anyway, long story short, Josh Jones was yanked off the practice field today. He stayed the rest of the time on the sideline. He did not return. We'll see where it goes from there. I would imagine it'll be over after today, but it was a disciplinary thing.
Jim Ozarski caught up with Trey Carson in the locker room after practice today, and he said Carson's reaction was like, it's whatever, it's practice, he's moving on. And as he should, it's his own teammate. He can't hold too much of a grudge.
Right, but the other thing about that is that Trey Carson's been around, he's played in the league. He's not an undrafted rookie, so he knows what's right and he knows what's wrong, and he knows that you're not supposed to tackle your teammate after the whistle. You don't do that thing. So that's why he took exception to it, because it was out of bounds. It's not something that teammates should be doing, and you got your residual I think the Reds and the Pirates had a little bit more fireworks last night than the Packers did out here. It was nothing like that, but you did get, kind of that crowd crowding around, some jawing. I think Jair Alexander, you said, was in there a little bit. There was some of that. It was nothing Reds Piratesy, but it was, it was a skirmish.
You know what's hilarious? Yesterday, I believe a report came out that fighting in the NHL is down. It's been on a pretty steady decrease over the years, and then that all happened last night with the Pirates and the Reds. That not good. I laughed. I found it a little bit amusing. I'm not gonna lie, maybe that makes me a bad person. However,
I mean, it is
not a good
entertaining
look. Yes, entertaining is probably the right word. So we got the Packers welcome back Savage, but they said goodbye to, not goodbye, but he was out today. Aaron Jones was out.
Yeah, did not say goodbye. It was more of a see you later.
See you later, yes.
It was more of a see you later. And they were very particular to say he was out today with hamstring tightness. Not a hamstring, they say. Hamstring tightness. So what that means, I don't know. I haven't gone back to look, but I'm fairly certain that he missed about 3 weeks last year with hamstring tightness. So I don't think there's any difference there. The question really to me is how much training camp does Aaron Jones need to be ready for week 1? Because hamstrings are tricky. You cannot return someone from a hamstring too soon, because the problem with a hamstring injury is not the first injury, but if you return them too soon and you re-injure it, that's when you're talking about being out for a long time. So you have to let that thing totally heal. Matt LaFleur said it was precautionary. I mean, he's their top running back. He's one of their very top playmakers, period. He's got to be healthy. And I think from the larger picture, it's just, what is this, day 3, day 4 in pads, and Aaron Jones is already out. That question is never going to leave. Everyone knows what Aaron Jones can do when he's got the ball in his hands. He's averaged 5.5 yards per carry in his 2 years in the NFL. That's really, really good. Leads the league. Can he stay healthy? That's the whole question. So it's not great to see that, but we'll have to see how long he's out.
Jamal Williams was also out today again, missing training camp due to a hamstring injury. So Tammy wants to know, aside from those two guys especially, has any of the running backs stood out to you yet? I know we were talking on the side. Dexter Williams obviously saw a lot of snaps today because of the top 2 guys being out of the running backs rotation. Yeah. What have you made of Williams or any of the other running backs so far?
Well, Tammy, I really reserve judgment until they start to tackle. I think that the preseason is going to be when we start to really know, because they're not supposed to be taking running backs to the ground right now. They did today one time, but these stud periods, it's hard to say. And not only that, but the game moves just so much faster when it's full live instead of, and you really see that in the preseason, and it's a big difference to the practice. So we'll have to see. It's early now. Dexter Williams, I do think, is he made a couple cuts today. I know Tom Silverstein wasn't impressed with the cut that but I thought it was he made an impressive cut up the field, and he's a one-cut slashing type running back's what he does, and he's got some good patience. So it'll be very interesting when they do go live in the preseason to see what he can do and the other running backs as well.
So Tom wants to know, not Tom Silverstein, Tom wants to know, is Mason Crosby practicing yet? He's not practicing yet. He has not practiced all of training camp, and in his place, Sam Ficken has taken all of the kicks. How much of a concern is it that Mason Crosby has not returned yet, and is that giving Ficken a real chance at Crosby's job?
I mean, as real of a chance as you have when you're in camp. I would just be really surprised if Mason Crosby didn't win that job, and that's not to say that I won't end up being surprised. I mean, that could happen. Sam Ficken hit a 48-yarder to close practice today, the backup 2-minute drill after the ones went, a 48-yarder with 3 seconds on the clock. I mean, that was his best moment of camp so far. I think he's 11 of 14 overall kicking, 3 of 4 against a rush, and the others were on air. So, he's certainly not come in and dominated, but he's had some good moments as well. He's got to come in and dominate to take Mason Crosby's job, and that's got to be what it is.
Speaking of competition, Matthew wants to know, is Deshaun Kaiser still the clear second-string quarterback, or is Tim Boyle giving him a run for his money? To me, it looks like it's it's been pretty balanced. They've been going back and forth using Tim Boyle and Deshaun Kaiser at the number 2 spot. But also, that being said, what about Manny Wilkins? Don't forget about him.
I think Brian Gutekunst was very clear. I asked him, I forget which day he talked, but I asked him just how do you evaluate quarterbacks when they're so new in an offense, especially young guys like Aaron Rodgers, but young guys who are still developing themselves, and then you place them in a new offense. And I mean, he really made it clear that the games are going to be when a lot of that evaluation. I mean, he said they've got to play winning football. You can tell that in the game when things break down. What do they do? How do they react? How do they manage the offense on the field? Those sort of things are what we'll see in the preseason. I think that those at that position, the depth chart will really get organized and solidified with what happens on Lambeau Field and at Baltimore and in Winnipeg in the games.
Mm-hmm. Riva, following up on that question, wants to know, does Manny Wilkins have a shot in making the team at all?
A long shot. I mean, it's a long shot. I can't say no shot, but he's certainly behind the other two. And I would think with Manny Wilkins, the more likelihood would be for him to be on the practice squad if they want to keep him. I mean, the 53, he'd have to come out here and just really wow to be able to put himself in that position, which he could do. I mean, it happens every year with guys that come out of nowhere, so it wouldn't be unprecedented. But he's a guy that, barring any great preseason tape, you ought to be able to sneak him through the practice squad.
So Dean has a question, and I know you've been very active in our live streams over the last few days, so thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. He wants to know, is Blake Martinez going to make another big jump this season? He is always quite consistent. I know last season he didn't really fill up the stat sheet as much as perhaps he even wanted to himself. What do you think about his chances to take another jump this season?
Well, I know the Packers really like him, and the jump for him to take would be as a dynamic playmaker. I mean, he's a tackle machine. There's no question. He's very active as a linebacker, especially between the tackles. He's limited in coverage, and he has been since he came in. And the question is not only can he get better in pass coverage, because he doesn't really, I mean, if Oren Burks does what they need him to do, and that's kind of why Oren Burks is here. That's why he was a third-round pick, to do that. So the big thing for him is, can he make plays? Not can he go out to the slot and cover a slot receiver, or can he always lock down the running back out of the backfield? Can he just make plays? Not just tackles, but turnovers, game-changing plays. That's the next step for him to take. That's when you start talking about Blake Martinez being one of the league leaders in tackles to being a Pro Bowl linebacker. And does he have that in him? We'll see. But, if nothing else, I mean, he's basically what A.J. Hawk was for many, many years here, which is a really active player who's durable, who's accountable. The Packers love him for the mental side, the fact that he is really the quarterback of that defense. He's kind of taken over where Morgan Burnett was a few years ago as the quarterback of the defense. Now it's Blake Martinez. So those things are very valuable.
So Martinez has been around for a while. Let's move on to talk about someone who hasn't been around for very long. Matthew wants to know how Dani Vitali is doing in the Packers offense. He doesn't mention Vitali by name, but he does say the fullback. There are 2 fullbacks, so Malcolm Johnson is also around as well. We talked a little bit about Vitali on yesterday's live stream, if you remember, but Nathaniel Hackett was very high on Vitali and Johnson just a couple days ago when he addressed the media. And Vitali has been used quite extensively in the first string offense and the second string. Do you think he has a shot at making this team?
I was just checking my play-by-play. He caught the first pass on the first play of the 2-minute with the ones today. He caught a little dump out of the backfield. He's a fullback, so he's not a game breaker, but he's going to be a part of this offense. I mean, it's very clear that they're going to keep a fullback, and then Dani Vitali, they call him the muscle man, which is, I think, what you want to call your fullback. I mean, you want a lead blocker who can open up holes for Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. And he seems to have some good set of hands too. I mean, he can catch the ball in the backfield as well. So, I mean, he's doing fine. I mean, he's going to be a part of this offense.
Michael says he hopes that Jimmy Graham is going to have a big year. There's some discussion going on in the comments. I see more questions about Jimmy Graham. Is he going to have a big year? I mean, this is a year Brian Gutekunst decided to keep him around for another season. And so far in training camp, again, it's early. I think we preface all of our answers with it's
to.
early.
So much changes between now and December. It's unbelievable.
But Jimmy Graham hasn't had the splashiest training camp ever so far. What have you made of him so far through training camp, and do you think he's poised to have a big season?
Well, here's the thing. It's early. But tell me if you agree. The best tight end in camp so far has been Robert Tonyan.
I agree.
I mean, that's just what my eyes are telling me. I mean, it's Robert. The most plays being made so far is Robert Tonyan, who, by the way, is getting a ton of first-team reps, like a lot of first-team reps, to the point where he's not just making the team, but he's going to be part of the offense. Robert Tonyan's got a long way to go. Not turn this into a Robert Tonyan question. He's got a long way to go, especially
someone asked about him
as
too,
a blocker. But if you just look at the tight ends in general, I mean, he's, to me, made the most plays. Now, Jimmy Graham, what does that mean? I mean, go back to last year. Jimmy Graham was making a ton of plays in camp, and it didn't translate to the regular season. So that's where you have to always preface with it's early, because there's just so much difference between what happens out here in late July and August and what happens in September, October, November, December. It'll be interesting in the games, obviously, once the games started, to see what Jimmy Graham does. But a big question I had coming in was what we saw from Robert Tonyan in the offseason, the first-team reps. Were those for real? Were they just kind of, decorative and filler? No, they were for real. I mean, this guy's going to make the team, and he's going to be a part of the offense, and I think that's the big development of that position early in camp.
This segues very nicely into Mike's question about how Robert Tonyan and Jay Sternburger are doing at tight end here in training camp. Now, before camp started, we discussed this pretty much on our tight ends preview for the season, and you were pretty adamant that Jay Sternburger was not drafted where he was drafted to be backup to Robert Tonyan. Again, it's early, but what do you think about that now?
I still don't think that's why he was drafted. I think Jay Sternburger is swimming right now, and that's not to be unexpected from a first-year tight end. I mean, if you go after the first or second round at tight end, your rookie year is almost like a red shirt. I mean, that's just the nature of the position in this league. You don't go and look at the rookie tight ends that have been world beaters year one. It just doesn't happen. So, that in that regard, Jay Sternberger's in a good place, right? Because he's got Jimmy Graham, he's got Marcedes Lewis, and he's also got a Robert Tonyan who's ascending, to give him time and for the Packers to be patient with his development, so they don't have to throw him into a situation where he's not ready. I would think, he's going to get all the time to develop he needs. Certainly Robert Tonyan's ahead of him right now.
Friend of the show, Aaron Aguilar, says it's Big Bob Tonyan season.
Hey, thanks for your numerical roster yesterday. That was helpful.
Thanks for joining in and chatting with some of our
attendance yesterday.
Oh, did he?
He did.
Very kind of you. Much appreciated. Josh wants to know thoughts on Trevor Davis's progress so far. Is he looking like he's going to make this team? Is it because of his special teams abilities? Is it because the Packers actually see him as a valuable receiver? Is it too early to tell?
I was going to say yes until the last part. No, I think Trevor Davis is likely going to make this team. He's not a lock, but I think he's likely going to make this team. I think special teams is part of that. But I also it's pretty easy to envision a really small package of plays that is designed to get Trevor Davis the ball in the open field. To me, he's the best athlete at the receiver position. Now, he's not the fastest in a straight line. He doesn't run 4.37 like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but he's so fluid, and he is fast. He's low 4.4s, and he's so fluid as just an athlete. You get him the ball, and that's why he's a returner. You get him the ball in the open field, and so with all the bunch sets that this team does and all the jet motions and the riffs that they can do off that from a schematic point of view, Matt LaFleur ought to be able to get 2, 3, 4 plays a game to Trevor Davis, ball in the open field, and he can make plays like that. So yeah, I do think that there's some value there. He's not a starter. He's not going to be. He's not obviously not Devontae Adams, but he's also not Geronimo Allison. He's also not Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but he's a 53 receiver.
So we're going to take one more question here to wrap up our live stream. If you didn't get your question in, don't worry. Tomorrow we will be back, not with Ryan most likely, even though you will be dearly missed, my friend. But I'm going to end this one off with Chris, who's from Australia. Apparently, it is the morning in Australia, so good morning to you, Chris. He asks, who are our biggest weapons apart from Rodgers, Adams, and Jones? Last season, it seemed like it was one of two things. It was the ball was either going to Aaron Jones or it was going to Davante Adams. Is that what the Packers want to be this upcoming season? Are they looking to spread it around a little bit more? And who might be a good candidate for them to spread it around to?
I don't think they're as adverse to being that as everyone else outside is. I mean, when we've asked Davante Adams, you know, would you like fewer than 170 whatever targets this year? He's like, no, I'd like 180. I mean, that's what he wants the same number of targets. We've asked Aaron Rodgers, would you spread it out more? And he's basically said, yeah, but it's tough when you have Davante Adams on your team. You want to throw it. So, I mean, that's the triplets. The Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Davante Adams. That's their three-headed monster here. I think from what's next perspective, it's to be determined still. I mean, Marquez Valdes-Scantling had the touchdown today in the 2-minute. Geronimo Allison has had his plays. Jake Kumro's had plays. Equinemius St. Brown has had plays. I do think there's some depth there. I think it's untested and unproven and maybe unready depth, but there's some potential for this to be a pretty good group. And we'll see how that develops. But, I think, for example, like Geronimo Allison would have had a big year last year if he didn't get hurt. Yeah, he was poised to have a really big year. The Packers have said that. He's full-time in the slot now. I think he's a guy who has the quarterback's trust and could be a playmaker. I mean, if you're looking fantasy football for a sleeper and late in the Geronimo Allison could be a playmaker if he stays healthy. He would have been last year. And then Marquez Valdes-Scantling has been a guy that is repped with the ones and just needs to continue to develop.
It'll certainly be interesting to see which of the wide receivers make the roster. Perhaps it will be more than 3. Perhaps it will not be more than 3. Only time will tell.
6.
You think it's going to be 6? That's your number? All right, Tom Silverstein.
At least, maybe 7.
Ooh, okay. Tom Silverstein was almost. He put his money on perhaps there only being 3 or 4 wide receivers.
3 or 4 wide receivers, huh?
Yeah. So I know someone had said
gets.
In our comments earlier that they were hoping to see 7. That was.
I could see it.
It's possible.
Depends on what J'Mon Moore does. He'd be my 7th.
Yeah,
so.
that in my brain he was also my 7th.
But then Trevor Davis would be my 6th. I think they keep 6.
All right, so
at least
you heard it from Ryan. I'll try to ask that to all of our guys over the next few days. See what they think.
I'm gonna say 6 at least, and it wouldn't surprise me if they kept 7.
All right, there you have it, Ryan Wood. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you are following us on all of our social media channels. We've been tweeting. We've been sharing lots of information out of our training, the Packers training camp practices. Also, make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com. As we mentioned, Pete is going to have a lot more details on everything that happened with Josh Jones.
Fight.
Got a little tussle out there, a little excitement. Instinctively I whipped out my phone and I was like, oh, I'm going to record this. But then I remembered we're not allowed to record that, period. It was during a period we weren't allowed to shoot. So unfortunately, I do not have any footage, but it might exist out there. I don't know.
Early fireworks. There'll be some fireworks here at family night on Friday.
Yes.
They showed up a little bit early today.
Oh, yes, they will. If you're going to be at family night, maybe we'll see you around. Thank you guys again. And now I'm going to turn off the stream and I'm going to give Ryan his 5 seconds to say whatever he wants. Go ahead, Ryan.
You guys take care. I'm going to step off the screen too.